Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben's award-winning podcast, as voted by Grow Your Own magazine and by my followers and listeners. So if you're new to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts, listen back to all our previous episodes, sit back, grab a brew and let's enjoy today's episode. Hello and welcome to Gardening with Ben. I hope we are all well. Well, today it's the 1st of December. That means we're on the countdown for Christmas, or we're on the countdown for summer. I know I'm excited about both of them. So yes, we are on the countdown, and we have been extremely busy on our allotment today. I'm still doing work inside my shed, because now is the perfect time to do all them renovations in the shed. As well as getting your allotment tidy, it's good to do work in the shed and get things done, and it was absolutely chucking it down on the allotment today. So I managed to stay dry and get lots of work done at the same time. So you can always find something to do on your allotment or in the garden. If you are getting an allotment, I do encourage you to build a shed or to build a greenhouse. You can get free wood everywhere. Just have a look around and see what you can find. You'll have friends that have wood piles lying around, old decking. I'm making brand new shelving out of what somebody's given me for all their decking, and it gets it all done and looking good, and all you need to do is give it a lick of paint and get it looking really good. So as I say, it's the 1st of December. That means we are going to be sharing with you all the jobs which need doing in the garden in December. I do this on a monthly basis. I share with you all the gardening tips and advice what I can give you for doing in December, and then hopefully tomorrow's episode, if I get it published, will be talking all about the things that you can plant in December. Yes, you can still plant stuff in December and you can get some stuff happening. So sit back, grab a brew, and let's talk about all the things that need doing in the garden this month. So we're going to be talking about all the jobs which need doing in the vegetable garden, in the fruit orchard, and in the flower beds. So first off, we'll be talking about all the jobs which need doing in the vegetable garden, which isn't many, because obviously there's not much happening in the vegetable garden this time of year. But if you are growing brassicas, like your Brussels sprouts, cabbages, you may have some cauliflowers in, you may have some kale in, make sure you still keep these netted up over the months, because there's not much around for pigeons to eat at this time of year, as things are starting to get barren. So pigeons will attack these and they will absolutely shred them to bits. That is the first thing I tell people when they get an allotment. Make sure you cover your brassicas, because I see people planting them all and then the next day they've all been absolutely eaten to bits. They thought they were slugs, but nope, it's usually the pigeons that actually attack them and eat them all to bits. So make sure you put some netting over them to keep them pigeons off. But remember to keep checking on it, because if it snows, which it has done here in Sheffield, the snow will rip it if it gets too heavy for it. So make sure it can be flexible so that it can have the snow land on it if needs be. So keep them netted up and keep them looked after. And if they've got any yellow leaves on them, on your plants, on your brassicas, just take them off, because it's no good for them. Just remove all the yellow leaves from them and keep them looking healthy. Obviously it's getting cold this time of year. If you've got any delicate vegetables out in the garden or anything like that that need looking after, fleece them over, keep them a bit warm, or build yourself a little cold frame to put over the top of the vegetables. But yeah, make sure you keep them nice and warm. Some things are good for the cold, like parsnips and leeks. The snow helps give it its flavour, especially parsnips. So let the frost get to the parsnips. Talk about parsnips, if you've got any ready in the garden, the best time to pick them is now, because the ground will be getting harder and frostier and you will struggle to get them out of the ground. Now that we've had a couple of frosts, that will have added the flavour to them, so they can be dug up and taken out of the ground now. Same goes for leeks. If you're growing leeks and you want to harvest them and they're ready, get them out of the ground before the frost comes, because you may struggle to get them out if the ground is too hard. Asparagus. If you're growing asparagus and you've not cut it back yet, make sure you trim it all back to the ground so that you can encourage the fresh new spears to grow next year and provide some delicious vegetables for you. And asparagus is really expensive to buy from the shops, so if you're growing it yourself, well done, and make sure you keep looking after the plant and it will keep providing fresh asparagus for you to eat. So now we're going to have a look at all the jobs which need doing in the fruit garden. So there's quite a few jobs what need doing, so make sure you've got a pen and paper if needs be, or listen to the episode again. Feel free to listen to it as many times as you want. I don't mind, it looks good on my figures. So if you are growing strawberries and you've not trimmed them all back, trim them all back, cut off all the old leaves, cut off any old flowers, get rid of any old strawberries what are growing on them what may have rotted, cut them all back. This will encourage new growth on the plants next year, and it will provide you with some delicious strawberries. So sort them all out. If you've got any old straw around them, remove it all because it can spread diseases, and lay new stuff next year. And the more you look after your strawberries, the more they will provide for you. And if you're anything like me, you will absolutely love your strawberries, and I certainly do that. Rhubarb. If you're growing rhubarb at this time of year and you're looking at dividing your rhubarb plants to make more plants, now is a good time to be doing it, because the rhubarb plants will be dormant at this time of year. Even though mine have got a couple of shoots on them, it's weird weather. I think my rhubarb are wanting to start growing again. But if you're wanting to divide them, now is a good month. Dig them up, split them, move them to where you want to be, but plant them straight back in, water them in, and they will grow back next year. So it's a good time to be dividing them. If you're growing raspberries and you've got autumn raspberries, cut them all back to the ground now, or it'll be too late later on, but cut them all back, and that will encourage new autumn raspberries next year. And autumn raspberries grow on the same canes which grow each year. If you've got summer raspberries, cut back the canes which fruited this year. Don't cut back the new canes, because they'll be the ones that fruit next year. If you're growing grapevines, now is a good time to be tidying them all up, pruning back which bits need pruning back, fasten them up to frames, make them look presentable, ready for growing next year. So next up is the flower garden, and these are the jobs which I'm going to be looking at, because I'm going to be starting to grow more and more flowers down on my allotment, because they are looking absolutely fantastic this year. So I will certainly be doing all these jobs which need doing. If you're growing holly in your garden, take some cuttings from it, get the leaves with berries on, create some Christmas displays for you, for family, for friends. But find some nice holly and create them Christmas displays, and then it can be a talking point around the Christmas dinner table, and you can say, I've grown all this in my garden and I've made these myself, and people will think, wow, fantastic. It will encourage them to try stuff like that. So take some cuttings and make some nice Christmas displays. Climbing roses. If you're growing climbing roses, these can be pruned, fastened and tidied back this month. Cut off any old flowers and tie all the shoots what are growing off the climbing rose to the frame, and get them all tidied, ready for growing next year. If you've got any hydrangeas, don't be tempted to cut the heads off the hydrangeas. Cut the heads off in springtime. If you cut them off now and the cold comes, the frost will get to the hydrangeas and it could kill the plant and damage it. So do not cut the heads off hydrangeas yet. They may look shabby and horrible, but just leave them on the plant until springtime. Roses. If you've got any roses that have had black spot on them, treat them, cut off the leaves, remove any old flowers off them, but if there's any leaves around on the floor, rake them up and burn them. Don't put them in your compost heap or leave them there, because it will encourage the black spot to spread onto other rose plants. So tidy up those roses, get them all ready for growing some fantastic beautiful flowers next year. If you're growing geraniums in the garden, dig them up, pot them up and move them into a greenhouse or a polytunnel, and you can get them to grow flowers again next year. If you leave them outside, they will die in the cold weather. Move them indoors and you can get them to flower again next year, saving you money. And the best thing about geraniums is that you want to save money, because the more money you spend, the less you have on yourself. So take that little tip. I've dug all mine up, I've moved them into my greenhouse, and they're still actually flowering now in my greenhouse, so I can get the beauty from them until next year as well. I know some people move them into the house as well, and they'll flower all through the winter. So it's up to you, but make sure you don't leave them in the ground outside. Move them indoors and look after them. So that has been all your gardening tips for December. Make sure you tune back to our next episode, which will be on what seeds to plant in December. And there's still quite a few seeds to be getting planted, as I will be sharing them with you in tomorrow's episode. So if you're new to this channel, make sure you click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts, and you'll be able to find out what they are. And also in the pipeline, I've got my new gardening magazine on the cusp of getting started. So I'm going to be sharing gardening tips, gardening advice and stories, and if you're a keen gardener yourself, send me a message on Instagram and you can write an article to go in it as well. So I'm hoping that to be a downloadable copy. We're not able to print them because it cost a fortune, and obviously we've got no sponsors for it, so it's going to be a downloadable magazine which you can purchase on a monthly basis. So I'm looking forward to launching that. I've tried it once before and it did really well. I just need to get it up and running now and put my brain into power and get it going. So I'm quite excited about that. So hopefully that's going to be launching in January for you all to start and purchase. So yeah, big things on the horizon, and hopefully I'd be able to do this full time, but I don't think that I'd get that many downloads. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. So yeah, thanks for listening to today's episode. Until next time, remember, keep smiling, keep gardening, and keep listening to Gardening with Ben. So thank you for listening to today's episode of Gardening with Ben. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Remember to do click that subscribe button to stay up to date with all our podcasts. Feel free to share them on your Instagram stories so that it spreads the word about my podcast and we get lots more listeners. Feel free to check out my social media sites, Facebook and Instagram as well, Gardening with Ben, and also my YouTube channel, to stay up to date with all my handy videos, how-to videos, and sharing my tips and advice. And feel free to check the link as well in the description for my Gardening with Ben t-shirts. Lots of funny gardening design t-shirts in there for you to purchase at great prices too. So thanks again, and as always, remember, keep smiling and keep gardening.